Her parents said no, but love doesn't listen to warnings. The night she realized love could cost her everything arrived quietly, without warning, like a storm that gathers in silence before tearing the sky apart. One moment she was standing at the window, watching the city lights flicker like fragile hopes, and the next she understood that the people who had raised her, protected her, and shaped her world were now the ones determined to destroy the one thing that made her feel alive. Her parents were not angry strangers or villains from a story. They were her own blood, and yet the battle they were about to start would leave scars deeper than any wound she had ever known. If you believe in kindness, in love that refuses to give up, and in second chances even when the world says no, take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the heart. She had grown up in a home where expectations were heavy and unspoken rules shaped every step of her life. Her parents loved her in their own way, but it was a love built on control, reputation, and fear of what society might say. From a young age, she learned to be careful, obedient, and quiet about her dreams. She did well in school, helped at home, and followed the path laid out for her, believing that someday she would earn the freedom to choose her own happiness. But life does not always wait for permission, and love rarely asks if the timing is right. When she met him, it was not dramatic or sudden. There was no lightning or music playing in the background. It began with simple moments, shared laughter, and long conversations that made the world feel softer. He listened to her in a way no one ever had before, not as a daughter who needed guidance, but as a person with thoughts, fears, and dreams that mattered. With him, she felt seen, not judged. She felt brave, even when her voice trembled. Slowly, without realizing it, she began to imagine a future that felt warm and real, not planned by someone else. The happiness she carried was fragile, though, because deep inside she knew her parents would never accept him. He did not fit the image they had built for her life. He came from a different background, held different values, and represented everything they feared would threaten their honor. At first, she tried to hide the relationship, hoping time would soften the truth, hoping love would somehow make everything easier. But secrets have a way of growing heavy, and eventually the weight became too much to bear. The day her parents found out was the day her home stopped feeling safe. Their disappointment was sharp, cutting through her like cold air. They did not ask how she felt or why she loved him. They spoke of shame, of ruined futures, of sacrifices they had made that she was now throwing away. Their words were calm but firm, filled with certainty that they were right and she was wrong. They believed they were saving her, even as they slowly broke her heart. From that moment on, every day became a test of endurance. Her phone was checked, her movements questioned, her freedom reduced to nothing. She was reminded constantly of her duties, her family's name, and the consequences of disobedience. They threatened to cut her off emotionally, financially, and socially if she did not end the relationship. Each conversation left her feeling smaller, trapped between the people who gave her life and the person who gave her hope. The nights were the hardest. Alone in her room, she would sit in the dark, replaying every word spoken in anger and fear. She wondered if love was worth this pain, if she was being selfish for holding on. Doubt crept into her heart, whispering that maybe her parents were right, that maybe letting go would be easier than fighting. But then she would remember the way he believed in her, the way he encouraged her to be strong, and the way her heart felt when she imagined a life without him. That emptiness scared her more than her parents' anger ever could. The pressure only grew stronger. Relatives were brought in to convince her, to lecture her about tradition and obedience. Stories of failed relationships and broken families were used to frighten her into submission. She was told she was too young to know what love was, that her feelings were temporary, that regret would follow her forever if she did not listen. Each word felt like a stone added to the wall closing in around her. Yet somewhere deep within, something began to change. The fear that once controlled her slowly transformed into quiet determination. She realized that no matter what choice she made, pain was unavoidable. If she gave up the relationship, she would lose a part of herself. If she fought for it, she might lose the comfort of her old life. For the first time, she understood that growing up sometimes means disappointing the people you love in order to stay true to who you are. She started to stand her ground, not with anger, but with calm honesty. She spoke about her feelings, about the respect and care he showed her, about the future she wanted to build. Her parents resisted, accusing her of being manipulated, of choosing a stranger over family. But even in their anger, they could see that she was no longer the silent girl who followed orders without question. She was becoming someone stronger, someone willing to face the consequences of her choices. The conflict did not end quickly. There were weeks of silence, days filled with tension, and moments when she felt completely alone. She missed the warmth of her parents' approval, the simple comfort of laughter at home. Sometimes she cried herself to sleep, wondering if love should hurt this much. But through it all, she learned to rely on her inner strength, to trust that her feelings were valid, and to believe that her life was her own. Slowly, cracks began to appear in her parents. Certainty. They saw her sadness, her resilience, and the way she refused to break. They noticed that despite everything, she remained respectful, patient, and honest. The image they had painted of her rebellion did not match the reality of a daughter who simply wanted to be happy without losing her family. Doubt entered their hearts, just as it once entered hers. Change came not as a grand apology or sudden acceptance, but as small, meaningful shifts. Harsh words softened. Questions replaced accusations. Silence turned into cautious conversation. It was not forgiveness yet, but it was no longer war. She held on to these moments with fragile hope, understanding that healing takes time, especially when pride and fear stand in the way. In the end, what saved the relationship was not defiance or rebellion, but love in its truest form. Love that endured judgment, survived loneliness, and refused to become bitter. She learned that standing up for herself did not mean hating her parents, and loving someone deeply did not mean abandoning her roots. It meant finding balance, even when the path was painful. Her journey did not end with a perfect resolution, but it ended with growth. She became someone who understood the cost of love and the value of self-respect. Her parents, too, began to learn that protecting their child sometimes means letting go of control. The relationship they tried to break became the very force that transformed them all, teaching lessons no argument ever could. If this story touched your heart, if you felt her pain, her fear, and her courage, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might be struggling, and let us know in the comments that you felt this story. Before the video ends, comment the word love if you believe true love is worth fighting for, even when the world stands against it. Some stories are not about winning or losing, but about becoming stronger through the struggle, and sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we fight not against strangers, but within our own homes, guided only by the quiet voice of the heart that refuses to be silenced.